So guys, so if I look like I'm talking to the screen, I kind of am. I didn't have a video of this before, and I try to have videos, and if you guys are ever absent, you're always welcome to watch the videos online, and then hopefully you don't have to fall as far behind. So we are doing a little bit with graphing again today. There's not going to be many graphing problems, but we still are going to kind of review that a little bit. So if you guys want to look at the warm-up question, it asks us to find the slope and the y-intercept of this line and then to graph the line. I'm hoping this is something that's pretty straightforward for you guys, especially with our most recent test. Hopefully it's something that you guys remember how to do. So if you want to take a minute, so your M and B. All right. So what's the B in this case, you guys? Yeah, Carson?
2.
The B is 2, because we have y equals mx plus b, so our B in this case is 2. And remember, the B is where we begin on the y-axis. So again, if you still need to take that last test or you're retaking it, this is a good review for us. So we begin on the y-axis at 2. Hang on a second. Okay. So I put a dot at 2. Now what's our slope? Yeah, go ahead.
1.
What kind of 1?
Positive. Wait, negative 1.
Yeah, that negative x tells us that's a negative 1 as our slope. So we put that over 1. Now when we have negative numbers, guys, make sure you're focused here. When we have negative numbers, the negative can go on the top or the bottom. It shouldn't go in both spots, otherwise 2 negatives actually make a positive. So this should be down 1, and then also positive 1, so right 1. So down 1, right 1. So from this spot, I'm going to go down 1, right 1 on my graph here. And again, we should be going nice negative, so we should be going downhill here. And we can also reverse that and go up 1, back 1. And putting a bunch of dots, I mean, you don't need all of them, but getting a good assortment of dots on our graph. And practicing graphing is going to be important because this is not the last time we're going to see graphing. Obviously, we're going to see it on our final exam, which is in a couple weeks here, but we also will we'll see it in other chapters, so knowing how to graph is going to be important.
Is it exam on paper?
Yeah. I have a hard time with electronic math tests. So unless we're actually like fully virtual, like that was the only time I ever did like, yeah, it was bad. All right, so we're gonna write equations, graph lines. We use something called point-slope form today. Now this is a form we don't use very often, and actually there's sometimes I actually skip this chapter or section depending on how much time I have. Like if I'm getting close to the end of the semester, this is a section sometimes I skip. But in talking with Mr. Hatfield, I know that he has brought this up in more upper level math, and I don't want you guys to completely like not be aware of this form. Now again, this form is not quite as useful. It's just a different form. Y equals mx plus b is kind of our go-to. This is kind of a secondary one. This one's called point slope. So I'll write out that formula, and so it's y minus y1. So the first y doesn't have a little subscript at all. We call that a subscript when it's down. Equals m parentheses, so times x minus x1. So it looks a little like slope, except there's no 2's, and that's intentional. So the fact that I didn't leave that off, and I know what I'm doing up here, so trust that I didn't just forget about that. So there's no little 2's. And so like when we do our slope formula, it looks similar to this, but not quite the same. So in our point-slope form, the name explains what it is. It tells me a point on my line. And that point on my line is going to be my x1 and y1. So if I know that point, I'm going to call it x1 and y1. So the name says point slope. Now, hopefully you know, where do I find the slope in this equation? What letter signifies slope?
Ooh.
Yeah, m. So m is our slope. So So slope is still the same, rise over run, or also our slope formula. So the name gives away what it is, just like slope-intercept form tells us like what it gives us, slope and the intercept. This point slope, it's telling me a point on the line and the slope. Now the point on the line is not a very important point other than it just happens to be one of our points. It's not like a y-intercept that is really useful all the time. So just so you guys know, point slope form, probably not as user-friendly, but we will, I just want to mention it so we're comfortable with it as well. So it says write the equation in point slope form. So this is our new form of the line that has a slope of -3/2. So they're telling me m. And it goes through the point -4, 0. Now yesterday we would have gone ahead and found the b from this. We don't need to find b this time. They just want us to write the equation. So if they're giving me the slope, they're also giving me a point. So what we're going to call that is x1, y1. So our slope and the point, we're calling it x1 and y1. So what we're going to do is put all of that into this new formula that we just wrote out here. Now, I didn't mention up here, I said that we have a point x1 and y1. The regular x and y, the one without the little numbers, we're going to leave those as variables. And I've told you guys before, sometimes with notations in math, I don't know that that's the way I would have picked it. Had we been sitting with some other people, I'd been like, hey, that doesn't seem like the best idea, having an x and y and then an x1 and a y1. That's kind of confusing. Now again, the x1 and y1 is the point on the line. The x and y I'm going to leave as variables. So there's two different things going on here. So this y I'm going to leave as a variable. So y minus, what's y1? 0 equals -3/2 is my m, parentheses. Now again, the x I'm going to leave as a variable, and then I'm going to subtract x1. So -4. So I don't like those double negatives. I don't know if you guys do, but so I'm going to change that to x plus 4. Now how about that y minus 0? I would probably just write it as y. You can leave it as y minus 0. It doesn't really matter to me. But just so you know, you could write that as y. So this is called point slope form. Now again, this is slightly different than slope intercept form. So I don't know what the b is. I don't know my starting value on my y-axis. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to just use the information they gave me. We're going to start at this point instead. So again, they give me the slope is -3/2. And the x1 and y1 is -4, 0. So instead today, I'm actually going to start at that point and then graph my slope from that point. Now -4, 0 is on where in the graph?
Ooh,
Yep.
the x-axis.
It's going to be on the x-axis. Very good. So -4, 0 is here. And then I'm going to do my slope of down 3 and over 2 from that spot. Kind of weird to start from a different spot, but down 3 over 2, down 3 over 2, down 3 over 2. I can actually tell what my b would be then. Up 3, back 2. So this one's called point slope form. What if I wanted to write this in slope intercept form? Could you guys do that from this graph, just to kind of a review of yesterday? y-intercept form of this? What would be the y? Tucker, what do you think?
Y equals negative 3 times x minus 4.
Let's go.
Okay, so we minus. I think you might have the b wrong. Would you say for it?
Minus 4.
So the m is correct. You guys see what the b should be though in this case? Careful. And Tucker's not far off because we did begin at -4, but on the x-axis.
Minus 6.
Yeah, so remember the b for slope-intercept form is always the y-intercept. So just kind of noticing the difference between these two equations. So this is graphing the same exact line, just two different ways. So those two are the same like graph, but they're shown two different ways. So kind of like a word that means the same thing. All right, let me.
Can we do one more?
Let's actually go to example 3, and then we'll take we're gonna do a Kahoot break today.
Let's go! Yeah.
So let's go to example 3. We'll come back to this one in a second. So this one wants us to write the equation in point-slope form. So that's our new form that we just learned. And to be honest, to write an equation in point-slope form is probably a little bit easier in this case because there's actually not as much math to do. So we're looking at example 3, please, if you could. Now, in the name point-slope form, I need to know a point, which in this case I actually know 2 points, and I need to know the slope. Do they give me the slope? No, but can we find the slope? If we have 2 points, can we find the slope?
Yep.
Yep. So we're going to find slope first. So we're going to find slope the same way we always have. And so we're going to subtract the y's. And then subtract the x's. So we found out our slope is -3/2. They're not always, the slope is not always -3/2. That happened to be the last example as well, but that's just a coincidence. All right. So here's our m. In point-slope form, we need a point. We actually have 2 points. We can choose either one, or we can actually choose both to write an equation in point-slope form. So just like when you guys have a nickname that you like answer to, like you answer to your full name or also your nickname, you hear both and you're like, oh yeah, that's the same, you know, someone's calling my name. Point-slope form is the same idea. It can look different or sound different, but it's the same exact equation. So we can write a point-slope equation using either point, and I'll show you guys both of them and show you guys that they're both correct. So we can use 0, 5 as my x1 and y1. We'll do that first. So our point-slope form is up on the top up there. I'm going to do y minus y1. So y minus, what's y1 in this case? 5 equals my m is -3/2, and then I do x minus my x1, so in this case that's 0. As strange as this seems, we get to stop here if we're asking for point-slope form. We don't have to go any further with that, so we just stop at that point. But I'm not done with that problem. I want to show you guys, you can also use this other point, and it's also a correct answer. So just kind of showing you guys there. So when I write my answer key for this homework, I'm going to have 2 answers for a lot of these because we can also use this as my x1, y1. So we're going to do y minus y, so y minus 8. My slope is still the same. And then x minus x, which is x minus -2. So I'd probably call that x plus 2. So either one works, so both of these are correct answers if I'm asking for point slope form. Sorry. I'm gonna find a place where you can see both. There we go. So either one is fine. If you get to be unique, you can use either of the 2 points and that's fine. All right, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna do a Kahoot on the writing equations that we've been doing the past few days. So you probably want a whiteboard or scratch paper. So if you guys wanna grab that whiteboard,